Hi everyone, my name is Marianne, and I have the pleasure to be online with you today to talk to you about some of my passions, including music, which plays a big role in my life. And I'll be very happy to talk to Julio today about this fascinating topic.
Don't miss it. And how are you doing today? Tell me a little bit about the beginning of your career and everything that you do.
So first of all, thank you so much for inviting me for this chat. It's lovely to get to have a conversation about one of my favorite subjects, music. Um, I was born in France, in Paris, and at the age of 4 years old, my mom gave me my first ever music class at home on the piano. And it was a very, very bad experience for both of us. There was a lot of tears, a lot of shouting from my mother. Um, it was a very bad memory, actually. And it was the only time she tried to teach me because it was such a painful episode in our family life. But after that, I got a chance to learn the piano kind of on my own. So I started to improvise a lot on the instrument. And for the next few years, my mother left me alone, which is great. Which we didn't have any other traumatic piano class together. But she just let me have fun on the instrument. And thanks to that, I think I developed a very intuitive sense of music. I had a great musical ear, and I could play back a lot of things I was hearing on the radio. And it was my first contact with music until eventually I got enrolled into a real music school and I had a formal music education around the age of 10 or 11. So, so I did it all, music theory classes. I was registered at the French Academy of Music, and I did my whole like piano curriculum there for many years. And that was my first contact with music. And I eventually fell in love with the piano, classical composers. I was a big fan of Bach in my young years, my teenage years, and that's how I started with music.
Fantastic. So it began in the beginning, it was traumatic, but then the experience is good today, right?
Yeah, no regrets. It was a bit of a bad start, but everything's well that ends well. And many years later, after I got my first kid, I got to discover a completely new instrument. So when my daughter was 5 years old, she asked me to take on the harp, which I knew nothing about. And in my heart, I had always been a pianist. I was almost born pianist. And I really identified to piano players. And I could not even imagine myself venturing into new instruments. But when my daughter asked to learn the harp, I went with her to a harp school here in Brussels, where I live. And it was a life-changing moment for me. All of a sudden, I discovered a completely different instrument that you can carry with you, and in some cases, at least in the case of the Celtic harp, not the pedal harp, not the classical pedal harp, but there's a lot of small harps you can take with you, unlike a piano. You can express yourself in a completely different way because the instrument is so close to your body. The way it resonates is there's something mystical about the sound. So I immediately fell in love with the harp. And the transition from piano to harp was quite intuitive because of the layout of the notes, the diatonic ladder that's used on most harps in Europe, at least. So I really got a new passion for harp. It coincided with lots of changes in my personal life as well, and it became a transforming moment. I started playing completely different styles of music, including folk, Irish, Celtic music, and it was a revelation. And since then, I've become absolutely passionate about Celtic harp. My daughter gave up on the instrument, ironically, meanwhile. So I've got tons of harps at home, but I'm the only one to play them. But I'm very thankful that my daughter opened the door to this new discovery and this new voice that I could speak through music.
Fantastic. You're gonna release an album. This is Celtic harp, right?
Yes, so I've been working in a recording studio recently in Brussels. It all started with an intent to record my favorite Celtic harp tunes. Uh, Lots of traditional Irish, even Breton tunes, uh, or even medieval type of music. And as we progressed through that recording project, I realized what I was doing was not very unique. There's a lot of fantastic Celtic harp players around the world. I'm just a very passionate musician, but I was feeling a little bit. I was feeling sorry. I was feeling a bit redundant actually going through that project. So I thought, why don't we try and do something a bit different that reflects what I uniquely like. I just wanted to bring something new to the party, and we completely evolved that recording project. I started composing extra melodic lines on top of those traditional tunes that I love. I started writing lyrics on them. I started singing on them. So it's become a completely different project where I'm kind of transforming existing, like, very famous tunes, and then adding a new layer, a new voice to them. I hope you're curious about the result because it's a little bit unexpected. Sometimes you recognize familiar tunes and then all of a sudden it becomes modernized, or well, it's different. So it's a really fun project. It's trying to take a new twist on some fantastic, lovely traditional tunes and giving a unique twist to them. So I'm learning a lot through that process in the area of writing, composing, and working in a studio with a professional sound engineer helping me master the tracks and give completely new atmospheres to my music. So it's a really exciting project. I'm very happy about the process and the journey, whatever the results.
That's awesome. I want to be the first one to listen to it, right?
You will be the first one to get the first sample of the album.
Fantastic. And of course, I want another interview with you when you release the album. So you're gonna talk
I'd
more
love
about this
to.
album.
I'd love to take you through the creative process and the stories. It will be a fun chat.
That's amazing. I would like you to tell me more about your career, because you don't only work with music, right? You do a lot of things.
Yeah.
You have something to balance your emotions and body and mind, right?
Oh yes. So I don't have a standard music career. Actually, when I was 20 years old, I decided I did not want to have a professional musical career. I was very tempted by it. I love the piano, uh, but it sounded like a very daunting career. At the time, becoming a professional piano player was quite difficult. It was very selective. You had to take a lot of very competitive auditions. It sounded like a lot of pressure, emotionally, mentally, physically, and it sounded like really hard to make my way through that process. So I very quickly deselected that career option, and I ended up studying engineering. So I graduated from a French engineering school when I was 23, and I've been working in the scientific area since then. I work in research and development for a big American company, and I love that job. I'm also a scientist at heart. There's something very there's actually a couple of commonalities, I think, between music and mathematics and science that resonate with me. So I equally love all of those seemingly different things. um, so the thing is that there was a turning point about 10 years ago when all of a sudden I discovered that the way I used to define a professional music career had changed slightly with the advent of the internet and social media. So when I was a kid, being a professional musician meant dedicating your life to public performances, having to be very competitive, try to stand out, and get booked for concerts. And it was a very intense selective process. Nowadays, you can completely redefine what being a musician means because so first of all, my first step in becoming a musician, or um, at least um, making my dream of being a musician come true, was through publishing music recordings and music performances via YouTube. YouTube was new at the time, was pretty recent at the time, but that was something that didn't exist when I was a kid. And all of a sudden, I had the possibility to spread the love of music and share my favorite compositions, arrangements through the internet and get a new audience online wherever I was. And that was a big defining moment for me, that realization that there's other ways to bring your music to life, to share it with others. And that's how it all started. And then there was a snowball effect. I started branching out into a number of musical activities, teaching, performing live locally where I live, composing, publishing books, music books, and that's how I kind of created my own musical career from scratch in my own terms and in very different terms versus the way I used to define it in my head and the way musical careers used to be defined in the past. So it's been extraordinarily enabling for me having that freedom and those new possibilities to express myself as a musician because of the modern technology of the internet, social media, and all the possibilities that they offer. So
Yes.
now I have this kind of dual career where I earn a living as a scientist during the day, and then I can spend some time on my passion for music at night after my daily work. I teach virtually every day with private music classes. I compose a lot. I arrange a lot of tunes. I publish a lot of sheet music on my website, self-published, and it's incredibly fulfilling. And it's a fantastic balance. I realize I'm extremely lucky to have that balance, not only because I have the privilege of doing things I love from the morning to the evening, but also I get an incredible stability and balance from this setup. I know a lot of musicians live in the uncertainty of their next paycheck. It's incredibly hard to know what your next day is going to be made of as a musician. It's an incredibly competitive environment. I think the pandemic has not helped with that, especially if you're a performing musician. Getting bookings for your art is more and more challenging. So at least I don't have the stress of wondering, is anybody going to book me? How am I going to eat on the next day? I have the stability of a proper income through my other career, and I have the luxury of having fun doing what I love and choosing to do what I prefer to do in the musical camp. So, so I'm extremely privileged, extremely happy, and very grateful of that balance I have in my life.
Sounds great. And music is another language, right? That you communicate to people with. And you speak another languages too, right? Is there
Uh,
any, you
it's
know,
it's interesting. I've always been passionate about languages since I was a kid. Um, so I was born and raised in France by a Vietnamese mother and a Canadian father, but French was our family language. So that's my mother tongue. And very sadly, I did not learn any other language as I grew up in my family. I wish my mother would have taught me Vietnamese, but she didn't. I think she was hoping I would blend in society. There was not a lot of spotlight on diversity at the time in my generation as a kid. We'd rather like blend in and speak the local language and have a good French sounding name, and we didn't necessarily value differences, like cultural differences, as much as we do today, very sadly. And I think there was this belief that kids' brains could not manage more than one language at a time. So I didn't have the luck to grow up multilingual, which I would have loved because my kids are multilingual now, and I see the magic, and I'm like, this is incredible. Kids are sponges, and it's such a privilege to be able to communicate fluently in a number of languages. So unfortunately, I didn't grow up in a multilingual household, but I was always fascinated by foreign languages. English was my first love because of the pop music I was hearing all around me growing out in France. My favorite pop songs were in English. I just love the musicality of the language. And unfortunately, I had to wait until I was like 9 or 10 years old at school before I could learn English. But whenever I heard an English song that I liked, I would kind of transcribe the lyrics phonetically on a piece of paper so I could sing along. So I would like repeat the lyrics, not understanding a single word of what I was singing, but it just like felt great trying to
Yeah.
imitate this beautiful English language sounds, which made my parents laugh. Uh, and then over the years, I kept being fascinated by new languages, new sounds. I had to study German at school as I grew up. Then at university, I picked up Italian, Spanish. I studied in Spain for a year, so there were free Swedish language courses at the local university, which I immediately picked up because I loved the sound of Swedish. And it felt like learning to play new instruments each time I was learning a new language, because it changes the way your body behaves just to produce the right sounds. It almost changes your personality when you try to adjust to the uh, not only the sounds but also the type of contents that you can express, because every language has got its nuances and subtleties. So it does feel like playing a new instrument each time. I also dabbled with difficult languages like Russian, Chinese, Egyptian, Arabic, which I've been exposed to through my work as a scientist. Super difficult languages, but beautiful languages. And recently, I also started to try and learn Japanese because I'm very passionate about karate, which is another of my passions and part of my daily life. So that's my next language challenge, trying to
That's
learn
amazing.
Japanese.
You mentioned the karate is something good for discipline, also balancing your energy.
Oh, yeah. So I'm absolutely not a sporty person. I think as a kid, I dreaded any sports activity. I was so bad at any sport. I tried many as a kid, and I was so clumsy, and uh, like sport was really not my thing. And I moved to Belgium when I was about like 23 years old for my first job here as a scientist. And and I walked past a karate dojo by complete chance. And the day I got into that dojo, I kind of never left since then. And the reason I never left is actually the primary reason why I love karate has got nothing to do with karate itself, but it's more got to do with the way it makes me feel. Um, it's like when you train karate, everything from your brain to every muscle, every part of your body has to be like synchronized, mobilized, and that creates a sense of mindfulness. I have no other words to describe it, but it's like you have to be in the moment, you have to be so focused. Nothing else exists then apart from this thing you're focusing on in that instant. And that's an absolutely amazing sensation. The thing that, you know, you can forget about any stress you had during the day, where you are, whatever happened just before. You are really present in the moment, and it feels amazing. It kind of resets your mind, and because of that incredible sensation, I've kept going back to the karate dojo for more than 20 years now. And in like since then, obviously I got to appreciate all other aspects of karate, which are amazing and fascinating and help you understand Japanese culture, Japanese values. They help you understand things about biomechanics, uh, about body efficiency, about power, about speed. and it's been so beneficial from a mental, spiritual, cultural, and physical point of view that I've never stopped practicing. It makes you strong, it makes you flexible, it makes you confident. There's thousands of good reasons to enjoy karate. So I would really recommend anyone to try practicing karate, or I guess any martial arts probably, for balance and self growth and mental health. It's an incredible experience. Any age, any gender, it's good for everyone.
Yeah, it's all about here and now, being here and now, balancing your energy, and also speaking to the world in different languages, right? Music, languages, they're all made
Definitely,
for communication. Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. And have you got any recommendations for a person, a student who wants to be a professional musician in the future?
Yeah. So, as I said before, I made the choice not to follow the standard, um, professional music career path. I think being a full-time professional musician is incredibly challenging. I absolutely look up to people who make that choice, but it's a career of sacrifices for so many reasons. It's a sacrifice, just like training as a musician at whatever level, even amateur level. I think um, it takes so many hours of hard work, so many repetitions, so much patience to build the right skill set, first of all. So it's there's a sense of sacrifice from the day you begin learning music, practicing an instrument, or um, trying to learn the discipline. And then, if you make the choice to work as a professional musician, there's so much mental pressure on you from the competition with others, from the uncertainty of the sort of jobs you'll be able to get in that area. I think it takes a lot of strength mentally to survive in that field. And I'm not exaggerating when I say survive. I know a lot of musicians who struggle to make ends meet. I think where I live currently in Belgium, um, the most desirable type of professional music career is a career where you have stable income. So it's having a contract either as a music teacher in a music academy, music school, having a contract in an orchestra, which is extremely hard to get because there's not a lot of spots in those music schools or orchestras. So the competition is fierce. The future is very uncertain. It takes a lot of a lot of strength and a lot of faith to go through that career. I think it's very, very challenging to maintain your mental health and keep your energy up with so much pressure. I think it's one of the most difficult careers. A lot of people don't see it that way because, yeah, playing music always sounds fun and enjoyable, which it is. But as soon as you take it to a professional level, if that's your sole source of income, if that's your way of earning a living, it becomes incredibly difficult. So I think anyone who wants to become a professional musician has to be aware of those challenges. It's all not rosy. There's a few very successful musicians, obviously, that make it look very attractive. The reality is that statistically, musicians are underpaid, undervalued. A lot of people don't even see what's behind the scenes, the challenges, the hard work, the uncertainty, the doubt, the self-doubts, the burnouts, the depressions that can come with it. So if my if my kids wanted to choose that career, I would really urge them to look at my own choice as an alternative. I'm not saying I'm doing the best thing. I'm just saying it's the best for my own personality and this sort of best fit with my lifestyle. But I think it's a very cool way of trying to reconcile things that I love. So having a dual career is maybe not a bad thing, at least to alleviate the stress and the anxiety related to income stability if you want to be a professional musician. Maybe there's ways to test out as well which areas of your music career you want to grow, not going full on into one direction and then realizing there's no demand or it's underpaid. Probably it's good to pilot out a few experiments, see what you enjoy, what you're good at, and where there's demand before you commit to a particular career area, specialization in music. And I would say it's good to diversify. I think for me, yeah, the keyword is diversifying. And I'm not saying you have to diversify as extremely as I'm doing, because from one side, I'm an engineer and the other side, I'm a musician. But you could diversify in another way. You could be teaching and doing something else in music that you love, or there's many ways to diversify. And diversifying is about mitigating the risk. The reality is you need to earn a living, you need to be independent, you need to be self-reliant from an income standpoint. So I think you have to face reality and make sure that you've got options to maintain your own lifestyle and dreams and finance them. So it's very unglamorous, and it's not the sexy part of being a musician, the fancy part of being an artist. But I think, unfortunately, that's the reality of being an artist in any field, be it music or any other artistic field. So you have to be creative. And the good news is that you can be creative. There's, again, my example earlier of leveraging YouTube to start defining how I could reach out to an audience as a musician was something that we didn't have 20 years ago. And so the world is changing, and there's many opportunities to reinvent who we want to be as musicians, as artists. So let's not lose hope, but also let's not lock ourselves in small boxes, because there's a lot of ways to reinvent ourselves and reach out to others and share our passion with others. So we should be optimistic.
Great. That's a good thing you mentioned. Reinvent yourself, be open-minded also, because something important that you mentioned is that the creative part of being a musician is very important, right? To be faithful to the score is important as a classical musician, but always open-minded.
Yeah, I think, and personally, that's what I love about the arts, the ability to explore new ways of looking at things. And I think one thing that helped me realize that as well was discovering the Celtic harp after years of identifying as a piano player. Because one thing I really found interesting about Celtic harp tradition is the way traditional music well, Celtic music has been shared over the centuries. So I came from this piano playing background and piano playing education, where there's a lot of classical music, written music. And as I switched to Celtic harp, I realized there's a whole universe of music that's unwritten and that has been passed on to other musicians through oral tradition, which is a completely different way to approach music. So on the one side, you have this very structured system of music writing, modern Western music writing. You need to learn music theory, you need to learn to read music, etc. And it's all very clean and structured. And on the other hand, there's this universe of music that's just transmitted in a completely different way, in a much more intuitive way, based on hearing things, repeating, imitating, playing together. I think they're both important and great. But for me, it opened so many new perspectives, trying to reconcile those two opposite approaches. And so that's something that's been really eye-opening with Celtic harp. The fact that yes, music can be structured. On the other hand, music can be very intuitive, very emotional. It's not something fixed. When troubadours in the past were playing music, they would pass on their tunes to another music player who would transform or modify or give a twist to the tune that they learned orally. And so it would be something very evolutive, very, very fluid, not like those classical music scores that are written in stone and you don't need to change one single note. So for me, it's been really eye-opening in terms of getting permission to be creative, to explore, to learn from others, to bring your own touch to your music, and yeah, and get a sense of freedom when you play a music piece. So so yeah, for me, Celtic harp tradition has been really revealing of the possibilities to be even more creative, even more transformative, and even more true to oneself, because you have permission to express yourself in whatever music. It's not a hard score written in stone that needs to be followed to the letter.
So that's fantastic. I'm very curious about this album. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hope
I
to hear it
hope you'll
soon.
enjoy it. It's and that's was yeah. There's a saying, I think, that from Billie Holiday, the amazing jazz singer. I think she said something like, "If I'm going to sing like somebody else, then I don't need to sing at all." And that phrase, that quote, has made me think a lot about, like, if we are an art, if I'm an artist, if I'm a musician, um, what do I want to bring to the world? That sounds very pompous, but I've always asked myself, why am I doing what I'm doing if it's not to be myself or to bring something that's a little bit different? There's we see a lot of AI art emerging these days in a lot of fields. There's a lot of AI graphic art mushrooming on the internet these days. But music is another area where AI will beat us, or not beat us, but will compete with human art in the next few months or weeks or days.
Oh,
We'll have to redefine a lot what is our unique contribution. Yeah, I think it's important to um, find your own voice, especially in those unique times where we're trying to redefine um, the uniqueness, the value, and the meaning of human sensibility, human contribution to art. AI is emerging. We see that AI can create amazing art in many forms, graphically, but also musically. I mean, AI can virtually do anything. And I think it's forcing us to reconsider a little bit what's unique about the way we humans express ourselves through arts. So I think it's a very universal question. As an artist, as a performing artist, as a musician, what is it you want to say uniquely with your unique voice, with your unique sensibility as a human being? And so it's the kind of questions that I've asked myself as I was working through that new album project. What is it that is uniquely me, that I'm dying to tell the world, that I want to share with the world, and that I would regret not saying to other, not sharing with others, and that only I have to say? It's a very hard question, But I think I found this compromise by trying to mix my favorite harp music with my own compositions, trying to layer my own songs on top of beautiful traditional Celtic tunes that I love. And I'm hoping that this mix is going to speak to people and bring to life the things I love about Celtic music in a slightly different way from what people may be used to.
That's fantastic. I thank you very much for this interview, for speaking to us about this beautiful project you have, and I hope to listen to it very soon. It's very interesting.
Thank you so much for inviting me and for listening. I'm very honored that you would spend some time with me and listen to what I have to say. So I'm looking forward to our next chat.
Me too. You have found your own voice, and this is a very important tip you have given. And I hope everyone that is listening is looking for their own voices and what's unique about them.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. See you soon.
See you soon. Bye.